We were sitting in an airport restaurant waiting for a flight home. My pastor Doug and I had just spent a week at a conference with about 500 other men. I was one of the small group leaders, and I was telling him how much I loved it, how the discussions got real, how much I personally got from it, and how rare it felt to be in a room with so many like minded men who were actually being honest with each other. And he listened, and then he said, "Yeah, it felt like a vacation." Not because the sessions were there and cool, or the speakers were great, or the time away from the office, because nobody knew him there. He wasn't anyone's pastor. He was just a guy in a small group telling the truth about his life, saying things out loud he would never allow himself to say at home. Not because they weren't true, because at home, in that role, anything personal you reveal can be taken out of context and used against you, used against the church. So he manages it. And when he finally got a week where he didn't have to be the guy, he called it a vacation. And I understood exactly what he meant. Maybe it was a friend who used something you told them in confidence against you later. Maybe it was in a relationship where you finally let someone see the real version of you, and then you watch them use it as a weapon. Maybe it happened so many times in so many different forms that you just stopped being able to trace it back to a single moment. You just know that at some point you made a decision, not consciously, not at all at once, but slowly over the years. Small betrayals, quiet disappointments. Somewhere you decided that full vulnerability just wasn't worth the risk. So you learned to manage it. Show enough to feel connected, but not so much that you feel exposed. Keeping the worst parts of yourself close to the chest where no one can reach them. And here's what that costs you that nobody talks about. You can't have real intimacy without authenticity, and you can't have authenticity without vulnerability, which means every relationship where you're managing exactly what they see has a ceiling. The woman who loves you can sense when you're holding something back. She may not be able to name it exactly, but she feels that distance. The part of you that won't come all the way in. And underneath all of it, there's a quiet loneliness that never quite goes away, even when you're not alone. But here's the thing about your relationship with God. He doesn't just sense it, he sees straight through it. Every layer, every protection, every carefully managed version of yourself you've been presenting to the world for so long. He already has the real thing, and what did he do with all of it? That's what I want to talk to you about today, because it's the opposite of everything we've been taught to expect. Psalm 139 says, "You have searched me, Lord, and you know me. You know when I sit and when I rise. You perceive my thoughts from afar. Before a word is on my tongue, you, Lord, know it completely." That includes every version of you, every thought you've never said out loud, every worst part you keep close where no one can reach it, known completely. And here's what God has never once done with what he knows about you. He's never used it against you. Not once. Every hidden thing, every shameful thing, everything you protected yourself without showing anyone else, he already has it. And his response wasn't to weaponize it, it was to send his son Jesus while we were still sinners. Romans 5, verse 8 says, "Christ died for us." Not after you cleaned up, not after you managed yourself into someone more presentable. While he knew everything. That's not a relationship with a ceiling. That's the only relationship in your life where fully exposed already happened. And the response was love. Not judgment, not the quiet withdrawal you've been bracing yourself for. Love. Do you worry being vulnerable will come back to haunt you? If you have, let me know in the comments. I read every one. Now here's what I want you to understand about what makes that possible. The editing you've been doing in every human relationship, the managing, the protecting, the showing enough but not too much, You don't have to do that with God. He already has the unedited version anyway, and he's still here. But before you can bring it to God, you have to be willing to acknowledge it yourself. We bury things so completely, so automatically, that we lose track of what's actually in there. The resentment you never named, the fear underneath the anger, the grief you decided you didn't have time for, the version of yourself you've never said out loud, even in the dark, even alone. Just sit with that for a moment. Not to perform it for anyone, not to confess it quite yet, just to acknowledge, this is in me. This is real. You've been carrying it a long time without ever looking directly at it, so that's the first act of courage. And then you bring it to him, because he already knows it, and he chose you anyway. There have only been a handful of times in my life where I've felt like I approached real vulnerability with another person, and I'm ashamed of that. Times when I've shown something real and it was received instead of used against me. Those moments are rare and they're sacred to me. But here's what I've learned. The longing for that kind of intimacy, to be fully known and fully loved at the same time, that longing is not a weakness. It's the image of God in you reaching for a relationship it was designed for. Because to me, that's what Psalm 139 actually is. It's not just a description of how much God knows about you. It's a love letter from the only one who's ever known everything and stayed anyway. You don't have to earn your way to being known by God. You already are, fully, without editing, without managing, without performing, and he's still here. That's not available in any human relationship, but it's available to you right now. Bring him the unedited version today. He's already seen it, and he already loves it. Jesus is the vine. We are the branches. Stay connected to him in this abiding life.